My name's Maddie Weinfeld, and like Ms. Mermelstein said, I'm a senior here at Bryn Mawr. In my 18 years of life, I can say with full confidence that sobriety is the greatest gift I've ever given myself. For those of you wondering why I made this promise to myself at such a young age, let me explain. My mom is an alcoholic. For the past 12 years, she has been drowning in her addiction and taking my family down with her. I've honestly lost count by this point, but I believe she's been to about 15 rehabilitation centers throughout the past few years in an attempt to get her addiction under control. Spending this much time in recovery centers around the country has left myself and my brothers motherless for much of our development. I matured at a rate determined by my mother's disease, and the worse she got, the quicker I grew up. Birthdays, holidays, vacations, school events, and key steps in the development of myself and my brothers have all occurred in the absence of my mom at one point or another. Because of her drinking, I have not been able to hold a steady relationship with my mom for about 8 years. As I reach the final stretch of high school and my time at home, I'm struck with the painful notion that my childhood is gone and I will never be able to repair the shattered memories of wine-stained lips and words clouded over with the smell of vodka. I missed out on the most vital relationship a girl can have because my mom couldn't get her act together. This all being said, I couldn't share my stories tonight without acknowledging the gratitude I have towards my mom, as she never fails to seek help. But with each goodbye, I find myself wishing that she had just chosen me over the bottle. This is the third year I'm talking at FCD Night, and each speech has been written under different circumstances with my mom, because that's the nature of her disease. She's unpredictable and hasn't been stable for more than a few months at a time since I was little. To be completely transparent with you, I tried writing this speech about 10 different times throughout the past few weeks, but it wasn't until Sunday morning when I woke up to that all too familiar phone call telling me that she had relapsed that I knew what I was going to say tonight. Well, you get the gist. This disease has taken everything away from my mother. It has taken everything away from my family, and it has stripped me of a mom and made my life a living hell. Leading back to my first point of sobriety, this is why I can't and won't drink. Alcoholism is often genetic, meaning that my brothers and I could easily carry the gene, and my biggest fear is ending up in the same position as my mom. I consider this both a blessing and a curse, as it is incredibly liberating, knowing that I'm strong enough to withstand the pressures to drink alcohol, and it will never be able to strangle me the way it did my mom. I will not let a substance stand in the way of becoming the best mother I can be someday to my children in the future. Something I know my own mom wished she could turn back time and do, because at the end of the day, she is nothing short of amazing. Though I can barely seem to scrape together enough memories from my childhood to fill my heart with a sense of happiness and nostalgia, I can still remember the first time my mother's disease ruined something special for me. Clear as day. It was my 10th birthday, and my grandparents had come to visit for the occasion. I was all ready to go to my favorite restaurant when my dad informed me of the bad news that my mom had an allergic reaction to some wine. She remained at her room the entirety of that night as I went to dinner, opened presents, missing my mom. The worst part of this night, looking back, is that I felt so bad for my mom because I thought she was sick due to this allergic reaction, when in reality, she had picked a bottle over me. So there I was, 10 years old, feeling sorry for my mom because she was allergic to wine. Soon after that, she left for a few months to go to mommy camp, where women go to have fun and learn how to be better moms. That was the first time she went to rehab. Little did I know how my life would change from that point forward. In the following years, my mom was in and out of rehab for months on end. 6th grade brought the divorce of my parents, after she returned home from a long stay at a rehabilitation center. After the divorce came an endless tunnel of relapses and disappointments. I learned how to be a mom, subconsciously taking on the burdens that my mother had left behind, and in the process, I grew up way faster than anyone should have to. In the following years, my oldest brother, who is currently 20, stopped talking to my mom. Their communication had been cut off, something that I knew would shatter my already fragile mother. So again, I stepped up to the plate and made sure I was there for my mom, even though she was not there for me. Again, more and more rehab and endless apologies that seemed to mean nothing. But I still went back to my mom in hopes of a relationship. It wasn't until 3 summers ago, upon my return home from an 18-day camping trip in Colorado, that I learned I could no longer continue this cycle. Now, I'm going to tell you my story from this summer, cut down a lot due to the fact that it was the single longest and most disastrous day of my entire life. But here's a gist of what occurred. I was coming home from Colorado with my friend who accompanied me on the trip. My mom was supposed to pick us up at the Colorado Springs airport and bring us to her hotel until our flight later that night. My friend and I ended up taking a taxi from the airport to her hotel because she wasn't in the position to drive. And the second I got out of the taxi, I knew what was going on. She was drunk. The events following went something like this. Our flight was canceled from the Colorado Springs airport, so I had to drag my intoxicated mother through the airport to get our bags, call my dad and tell him that my mom was drunk and our flight had been canceled, get tickets for a flight departing from Denver airport later that night, get a taxi with my mom and friend, and get us to the Denver airport. In case you haven't been to the Denver airport, let me just say it is huge and absolutely bustling with people. I had to get my mom, stumbling over her own feet, through baggage claim, security, trams, and into our terminal, where I sat her down, gave her a pillow and a blanket, and forced her to sleep. I thought it couldn't get any worse, but of course I was wrong. She ended up leaving for about an hour without telling me where she was going, and came back stumbling and slurring even more than before. She had the audacity to drink more while she was supposed to be there for me. I was enraged. There she was, acting like a child, embarrassing me, and eventually acting out until the rest of the airport could see as well. The situation escalated to the point where my mom was surrounded by a crowd of people, where a random woman came up to me, asked me if that was my mom, and causing me to immediately burst into tears. The woman told me that I didn't have to deal with this anymore and that I deserved better. She told me that I had to make the decision of what to do with my mom, and at that point, I wanted her gone, and I never wanted to see her face again. The police ended up coming and taking my mom away, and my friend and I flew home alone that night. There were so many people that came up and asked me if that was my mom and offered their deepest apologies. I was mortified. I ended up cutting off all contact with my mom for about 3 months after that. However, as the cycle goes, I forgave her, we built back a relationship, and I was devastated when she relapsed again on the night of my ring dance. It was the Denver airport all over again. Though each profoundly sad in their own ways, these past 2 stories aren't even the worst of my experiences with my mom, just a part of a long, never-ending battle against her addiction. This all being said, these experiences are a part of me, as they have largely shaped who I am and how I view the world around me on a daily basis. So much has changed in my life since these events. I'd say the biggest change revolving around my mom would be the fact that she moved to Malibu, California after one of her many relapses nearly 2 years ago. Though she lives far away, her drinking still manages to reach me and tangle me up in ways that I often find impossible to escape. I went to visit her for the first time since she moved over winter break, and it was a week full of happiness. Despite all I have told you about the perils of her disease, there is still a lingering feeling of hope in my heart for my mom. Malibu instantly felt like home. and so did being in my mom's arms after a long 6 months away from her. After that trip, I decided that I would take the good times as they came, because in reality, that's all you can do. There's a hell of a lot of bad, but how could I pass up having a perfect mother, even if it's only temporary and could cause me more residual pain? Though I never imagined saying that my mom lives almost 2,700 miles away from me, I know that this was one of the best things she could have done at this point in our story. If you had told me in 6th grade that my parents, who seemed madly in love with each other at the time, were soon to get a divorce, and in 4 short years my family would be separated by a distance greater than the confines of my house, I would have told you you were crazy. But that's the thing with alcoholism. Life tends to spiral out of control, not only for the addict, but for the whole family. Addiction is often referred to as the disease that makes you too selfish to see the havoc you've created or care about the people's lives that you have shattered. When you decide to have a drink, you are not only risking your own life, but you are also impacting the lives of people who love you most. I know my mom loves me. You can see it in her eyes and the way she talks about me. I feel her love in hugs, and I've seen it in tears as they have streamed down her face. Unfortunately, even if she took all of her undivided love for myself and my family, she could not reverse the effects of alcohol that she has let into her body. I can wish on every birthday candle or at every 11/11 that my mom just never had her first drink, but that will do nothing. Instead, I stand here in front of you and tell you how every decision you make now has the capability to impact your future in ways you couldn't even imagine. When my mom first decided to let the liquid devil slip through her lips and down her throat, she probably wasn't thinking about the long-term repercussions that this decision would have on her life. If she had known that her decision to drink had even the slightest chance of altering her future in the way it did, I know for a fact she would not have taken that first sip. In fact, right now, all I have to say to my mom is this. If she were here, I would say, here we are again. You've been knocked down yet again by the disease that has stripped you of the normal life you deserve. Every time I receive a drunken phone call from you, I'm faced with so many emotions and thoughts. Panic, fear, sadness, helplessness, pain, grief, anger, frustration, and many more feelings that I can't even articulate come flooding into my head at 1,000,000 miles an hour. After practically being able to smell the alcohol in your breath from nearly 3,000 miles away, these phone calls leave me in a state of devastation. Every time. It is impossible to get used to a call like that, though I now have a routine on how to handle it so I don't go off the rails. I take long, deep breaths and let my body catch up with my mind. I tell myself that you have a disease. It's chemical, not too different from cancer. It has nothing to do with me or how much you love our family. This, I know, is true. Though these thoughts can calm me down, they do not take away the constant worry that grows stronger with every relapse. As I write this, I'm realizing how telling it is to the extent of your inconsistency in sobriety that I have a whole routine down on what to do when I get that call. Over and over again, you tell me I am safe and I will get back on track. I'm tired of hearing this. I will no longer allow this statement to be used on me. I can only hope and pray with my whole heart that this will be the last time and you will continue on a meaningful life in long-term sobriety. But if not, I expect more of you when it comes to an explanation and apology. So that's what I'd have to say to my mom if she were here right now, and this is what I have to say to you all tonight. Though it's hard to think about as freshmen, I urge you to consider the fact that your futures could look like my mom's if you choose to step down the wrong path. Trust me when I say that the fight against addiction is a battle that you do not want to face. My mom is a strong woman, but I've seen her mind and body deteriorate at times in the worst of her drinking. As soon as you become addicted, the desire to drink will never stop. Life is a constant battle against everything you know you should do and everything you want. Here at Bryn Mawr, we are given a remarkable foundation of academic excellence, a component of our lives that could lead us to live the most productive and happy lives we can. However, we are all a part of a high school community that often releases stress in the forms of drug and alcohol. Every time you go to a party, you are given the choice to surrender the potential of your future to a red Solo cup or shot of vodka, and I can promise you that that is a compromise that is not worth making. I'm sober, but I have a social life. These two things can go together if you let them. More often than not, passing up a beer earns me the respect of a friend or even random stranger. Sometimes I'll get the comment, "Wow, I wish I didn't have to drink." A response like that is yet another reason why I'm up here talking to you. You will never have to drink. Visco posts glorifying Svedka bottles and talking about how cute being drunk is may tell you otherwise, but drinking is avoidable and should not be imposed on you by society. The decision to engage in underage drinking is more serious than social media may suggest. As soon as you take a sip of alcohol, you are signing a contract that says you are no longer in control of your body. My mom hasn't been able to grasp control of hers since she took her first sip. For me, making the decision not to drink was necessary. What I've learned through my experience of being sober throughout high school is that no one cares what you decide to do with your body. No one cares if you aren't drinking at a party. It is not social suicide to pass up that beer. And though it might seem difficult at times to reject the notion that you have to drink to have fun, I can promise you that it isn't impossible, and it is incredibly gratifying knowing that you can have fun without a substance coursing through your blood. Now, I know I just threw a lot at you. So if there's one thing you take away from me sharing my story tonight, I would like it to be this. I'm not telling you guys not to drink because I know a lot of you will, but rather I'm asking you to take a moment before you engage in underage drinking or drugs. Although it might not seem like it, your decisions now can impact your future. So please, before you take a sip, ask yourself if you are ready to sign a contract giving up control of your body. Ask yourself if you are drinking because you want to or because you feel pressure to. Ask yourself if there is already addiction in your family that might have been passed down to you. And most importantly, ask yourself, do you need this? My mom had no clue that the stories I told you tonight would be her future. And I can just about promise you that if she had taken a step back to think about the questions I just asked you all to consider, she would not have become the addict that she is. I would have a mom, and although it was a pleasure speaking to you, I would not have had these stories to tell. I'm here as a resource for each and every one of you. So if you need me, please don't hesitate to come chat.